The police officer stared at me in silence, then slowly closed his notebook and said, "You're the third person this month to tell this exact story." That's when I realized something was very wrong, because I had never told anyone what really happened that night. I should start by saying this. I don't scare easily. I've never believed in ghosts, curses, or things that go bump in the night. I'm the kind of person who needs proof, logic, explanations. But what happened to me wasn't something I could explain, no matter how many times I replay it in my head. And the worst part? I'm not even sure it's over. The first sign that something had already gone wrong was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the calm, late-night quiet you enjoy when everything feels safe. This silence felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath, like something was listening. I remember standing there frozen, realizing I couldn't hear the sound I should have been hearing. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic, nothing. Just my own breathing, shallow, shaky, too loud. And then I noticed something else. The door was open. I know for a fact I had closed it. I always do. I double-check locks. I even remember the sound it made when it latched shut. But there it was, cracked open just enough for darkness to spill inside like ink. That's when the question hit me, sharp and sudden. If I didn't open the door, who did? My heart started pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I told myself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I misremembered. Maybe then I saw the footprints. They weren't muddy. They weren't bloody. They were just there, pressed faintly into the floor, leading away from the doorway and deeper inside. Bare footprints. Large ones. And they weren't mine. I remember whispering, "Hello," even though every instinct in my body was screaming at me not to make a sound. No answer. But something shifted in the darkness just slightly, like it had heard me. At that moment I knew this wasn't one of those stories where the danger slowly creeps in later. Whatever this was, it had already arrived. It had already been inside. Maybe it still was. I tried to laugh it off. People do that when they're scared. I told myself I was being dramatic. That fear makes your mind play tricks on you. But fear doesn't move objects. Fear doesn't open locked doors. And fear doesn't leave footprints that stop right behind you. Because that's where they ended. Right behind where I was standing. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The air felt thick, pressing against my skin, making it hard to breathe. My ears rang with that awful silence again, louder than any noise could be. I had the overwhelming sensation that if I moved, even an inch, something terrible would happen. Have you ever felt watched so intensely that your body reacts before your mind does? Goosebumps rising. Muscles tightening. A deep animal certainty that you are not alone. That's what I felt. And the scariest part wasn't the open door, or the footprints, or the silence. It was the realization that whatever had come inside didn't rush, didn't hide, didn't leave. It waited. And as I stood there, too afraid to turn around, one thought echoed over and over in my head. If this already happened once, what's stopping it from happening again? Before that night, my life was painfully normal. That's what makes everything harder to accept. Nothing about my routine suggested danger, mystery, or anything even remotely frightening. My name is Daniel. I'm 29 years old, and at the time, I was living alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside a small town. The kind of place where nothing ever really happens. Tree-lined streets. Identical houses. Neighbors who wave but never ask personal questions. Safe. Predictable. Forgettable. It was a Tuesday night. I remember that clearly because Tuesdays were the slowest days of my week. No plans, no stress, no surprises. I had just gotten home from work around 8:30 p.m., tired in the most ordinary way, mentally drained, physically fine. The sky outside was already dark, but the neighborhood lights glowed softly through my windows, giving everything a warm, familiar feel. I wasn't doing anything unusual. I reheated leftovers, kicked off my shoes by the door, and sank into the couch like I had done hundreds of times before. The TV played quietly in the background, some forgettable show I wasn't really watching. My phone buzzed now and then with notifications I mostly ignored. I felt safe. That house had never given me a reason not to. I'd moved in about 6 months earlier, and from day one it felt like home. No weird noises. No bad vibes. No stories from neighbors about previous owners or strange events. Just clean walls, creaky floors, and the comforting knowledge that I was alone by choice, not because I had to be. Around 10:45 p.m., I decided to call it a night. I remember checking the time because I had an early meeting the next morning. I turned off the TV, washed my plate, and did one last walkthrough of the house, another habit of mine. I checked the windows, locked the back door, turned off the hallway light. Everything was exactly how it should be. My mood was calm, almost peaceful. I was already thinking about nothing in particular, just that half-asleep mental fog where your thoughts drift without direction. I remember feeling grateful for the quiet. No roommates, no noise, just me and the gentle hum of the house settling for the night. I brushed my teeth, changed into old sweatpants, and stood in the bathroom for a moment, staring at my reflection. I looked normal, relaxed, a guy ending an unremarkable day. Before heading to bed, I did one last thing. I locked the front door. I remember it clearly. The metallic click, the slight resistance of the deadbolt, the familiar motion of my hand turning the lock. It was such a small, insignificant action, one I'd done so many times it barely registered. Then I went to bed. The bedroom was dark except for the soft glow of a streetlight filtering through the curtains. I lay there scrolling on my phone, thinking about work, weekend plans, random thoughts that meant nothing. The house was quiet in that comforting way that tells you everything is normal. I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't alert for danger. I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I always did, in a place that had never once made me feel unsafe. And that's the part that still haunts me, because whatever came into my house that night didn't break the peace. It waited until I believed completely in it. Sleep didn't come right away. At first, I thought it was just one of those nights, my mind refusing to shut off, replaying nothing in particular. The house was quiet, but not the deep, empty quiet I was used to. There was a softness to the silence, like something was pressing against it. I rolled onto my side and closed my eyes. That's when I heard it. A sound so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it. A soft, dull creak, like someone shifting their weight on an old floorboard. It didn't come from my room. It came from somewhere deeper in the house. I froze for a moment listening. Nothing followed. Old houses make noises. I knew that. Wood expands. Pipes settle. I told myself that and forced my shoulders to relax. My breathing slowed. I stared into the darkness until my eyes adjusted to the shapes of the room. A few minutes passed. Then another sound. This one was different. Not a creak. More like a slow, careful scrape. As if something had brushed lightly against the wall or the bottom of a door. It was subtle, almost polite, and that somehow made it worse. I sat up in bed. The sound stopped the instant I moved. I remember thinking how strange that was. Houses don't respond to movement. They don't wait. But the silence that followed felt intentional. Like whatever caused the noise was listening too. I reached for my phone and checked the time. 12:17 a.m. Too early for it to be morning sounds. Too late for it to be normal activity. My heart beat just a little faster. Not panic, just awareness. The kind you get when something feels off but you can't explain why. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and stood, listening. The house smelled different. I didn't notice it at first, but once I did, I couldn't ignore it. A faint, unfamiliar scent in the air, stale like damp fabric or an old basement that hadn't been opened in years. It didn't belong upstairs. It didn't belong anywhere I could remember. I told myself I was overthinking it. Still, I walked to the bedroom door and cracked it open. The hallway was dark, but not empty. The shadows looked thicker somehow, pooling in the corners instead of fading naturally. The air felt cooler outside my room, brushing against my skin in a way that made me shiver. I listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. No movement. But the feeling didn't leave. That unmistakable sensation. The one you get when someone is standing behind you, even if you can't see them. My neck prickled. My shoulders tightened. Every instinct in my body was suddenly awake. I turned slowly, scanning the hallway. Still nothing. I stepped out of the room. Each floorboard beneath my feet sounded louder than it should have, the noise echoing in my ears. I moved carefully, as if I didn't want the house to know I was awake. As I passed the guest room, I noticed the door was slightly open. That stopped me. I always kept it closed. Always. The room was empty, unused, and something about it made me uncomfortable even during the day. I was sure I had shut that door earlier. I remembered turning the knob, pushing it closed, hearing it latch. Now it stood open just a few inches. I stared at the dark gap, half expecting it to move. It didn't. The longer I stood there, the heavier the air felt. My ears rang softly, like the world was holding its breath. I became acutely aware of how loud my own breathing was, how fast my heart had started to pound. Still nothing had happened. No threat. No danger. Nothing I could point to and say this is wrong. And yet every part of me knew it was. I backed away slowly, returning to my bedroom and closing the door behind me. I locked it, something I'd never felt the need to do before. Lying back in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized I wasn't waiting to fall asleep anymore. I was waiting to hear what would come next. The sound came back at 12:43 a.m. This time there was no mistaking it. It wasn't a creak or a scrape, it was a footstep. Slow. Deliberate. Heavy enough that I felt it through the mattress before I fully heard it. The floor outside my bedroom door groaned under the weight of something that did not belong there. I sat up so fast my head spun. The air in the room changed instantly. It felt thicker, harder to breathe, like the house itself had dropped into a deeper pressure. My ears popped. My skin prickled. Every instinct screamed at me to stay still. Then came another step. Closer. My bedroom door handle rattled once. Just once. Not violently. Not forced. Testing. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. For a brief, terrifying moment I thought that was it, that whatever was out there had changed its mind. Then the shadow appeared. It slid under the crack at the bottom of the door, stretching unnaturally long, bending in a way shadows shouldn't. It didn't match the hallway light. It didn't shift or flicker. Just waited. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Someone was standing there. Not a presence. Not a feeling. Someone. The floor creaked again, right outside my door, followed by a sound that made my blood run cold. A slow, uneven breath. Wet. Strained. Like lungs struggling to work properly. I covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. My mind raced through explanations. A neighbor. A break-in. Some horrible misunderstanding. But none of them explained how the front door was still locked. None of them explained how I hadn't heard anyone enter. None of them explained the way the shadow moved, as if it wasn't quite attached to the body casting it. The breathing stopped. Silence stretched tight, painful. Then a voice spoke. It wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It was calm. Daniel, it said. My name. Not shouted. Not whispered. Spoken like someone testing the sound of it. I nearly dropped my phone. I had never told anyone my name in this house. No visitors. No guests. No one who could be standing on the other side of that door saying it like they knew me. The handle turned. Slowly. The lock held, but the pressure against it was firm, confident. Whoever or whatever was there knew it wouldn't open. It wasn't trying to get in. It was letting me know it could. The atmosphere in the room felt wrong now, like gravity had shifted. My chest tightened. My heart slammed so hard it hurt. This wasn't fear anymore. This was danger. Real, undeniable danger. The voice spoke again, closer somehow, even though the door hadn't moved. You shouldn't have locked this. That's when I realized the truth. Whatever was outside my bedroom wasn't discovering the house. It already knew it. It knew the layout. It knew the sounds. It knew me. And it wasn't surprised to find me here. The shadow pulled back from under the door. Footsteps moved away slowly, calmly down the hallway. Not leaving. Just repositioning. I knew then that hiding wouldn't save me. The game had already started. I didn't wait to hear another step. The moment the footsteps faded down the hallway, my body moved on instinct. Adrenaline flooded my system so fast my hands shook. My chest burned. Every sound felt amplified, my heartbeat, my breath, the faint rustle of fabric as I slid off the bed. I grabbed my phone and eased the bedroom window open. Too slow. A floorboard creaked outside the door. Closer this time. Faster. I slammed the window shut and turned just as the door handle twisted again, harder now. The lock groaned. The frame shuddered. Whatever patience it had was gone. Daniel, the voice said again, right on the other side. Come out. I bolted. I tore across the room and dove into the bedroom closet, yanking the door closed just as the lock snapped. The sound was sharp, final. The bedroom door burst open with a crack that echoed through the house. Heavy footsteps crossed the floor. Close. Too close. I pressed myself against the back wall of the closet, knees pulled tight to my chest, one hand clamped over my mouth. The darkness was suffocating. I could smell dust, old wood, something metallic like rust. The thing entered the room. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. The uneven breathing. The slow drag of something heavy across the carpet. It stopped just a few feet from the closet door. My vision blurred. My phone buzzed again in my hand. I nearly screamed. I smashed the screen dark and held my breath so long my lungs screamed for air. The closet door creaked. Just a little. A thin line of light spilled in, and with it, the shadow. It bent down, stretching across the floor, climbing the wall toward me. It moved like it was feeling its way forward. Closer. Closer. Then sirens. Distant. Faint. But real. The shadow froze. The breathing stopped. For a second, nothing moved. Then the footsteps retreated. Fast this time. Angry. Heavy. I heard furniture slam, the front door rattle violently. I didn't think. I ran. I burst out of the closet, sprinted through the bedroom and down the hallway. The house felt alive now, groaning, shaking, closing in. I slipped on the stairs, caught myself and kept going. The front door was still locked. My hands fumbled with the deadbolt, slick with sweat. Behind me something roared. Not a voice, not quite a sound I could recognize. The walls vibrated. The lock finally gave. I threw the door open and stumbled onto the porch just as headlights flooded the street. A police cruiser skidded to a stop. I collapsed on the steps, gasping, screaming words I don't remember saying. The officers rushed past me, guns drawn, shouting commands into the house. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No damage, except for my bedroom door, which hung open, splintered. They searched every room. The attic. The basement. Empty. By the time they finished, the house felt normal again. Quiet. Still. Innocent. They told me it was probably a break-in attempt. Stress. Imagination. Adrenaline playing tricks on my mind. But as they walked me to the ambulance, I looked back at the house. The guest room door was open. Wide. And from the darkness inside it, something moved. Just enough to let me know I hadn't escaped. I'd only been allowed to leave. They kept me at the hospital until sunrise. By the time the sky outside the window turned pale gray, the shaking in my hands had finally slowed. A nurse wrapped me in a warm blanket, asked the same questions over and over, my name, the date, where I was. I answered automatically like someone else was speaking for me. Physically, I was fine. No injuries. No concussion. Just elevated heart rate and shock. They said that was normal. The police came again, one at a time this time, calm and quiet. They asked me to tell the story from the beginning. I did. Every sound. Every step. Every word the voice had said. They listened without interrupting. When I finished, one of them nodded slowly and wrote something down. Another avoided my eyes. They told me they searched the house again after I left. Still nothing. No fingerprints that didn't belong to me. No signs of forced entry from the outside. No damaged locks. No evidence anyone had ever been inside the house but me. The bedroom door I swore had been splintered? They said it was intact. The closet door I hid behind? No marks. No scratches. No sign it had been touched. According to them, the house was exactly the way I'd left it when I moved in. I didn't go back. I called my sister from the hospital parking lot and asked if I could stay with her for a few days. I didn't explain much. Just said something bad happened. She didn't ask questions. She heard it in my voice. For the first few nights I barely slept. Every creak made my stomach drop. Every whisper of air through a vent felt like breath against my ear. I started sleeping with the lights on, the TV playing softly, anything to drown out the silence. Because silence was the worst part. Silence meant listening. A week later, the real estate company emailed.